Welcome, dear friends, to TERAFLORA Studio, a place where small corners bloom into sanctuaries, where pots of green turn walls into living stories, and where nature teaches us that even the simplest spaces can hold extraordinary beauty. Imagine stepping outside and finding a world where vines climb gracefully, blossoms spill like gentle laughter, and fragrance softens the air around you. Here, we learn together that gardens are not only about plants, but about feelings, moments of calm, of wonder, and of quiet joy. Before we begin, I want to share something important with you. This content has been carefully crafted and thoughtfully arranged with the assistance of AI technology. It allows us to gather ideas, organize inspirations, and present them to you in a way that feels both creative and practical. Still, every vision, every design, and every story is meant to inspire your hands and heart in real life, reminding you that beauty is always within reach. As you listen, I invite you to let the pace of the words slow you down, like the rhythm of a garden breeze. Let these stories guide you not just as ideas for plants, but as seeds for imagination, things you can shape, adapt, and make your own. If you find peace and inspiration here, consider becoming part of this journey. By subscribing to TERAFLORA Studio, you join a community of dreamers, makers, and lovers of green spaces. Together, we will explore designs that soothe, creations that inspire, and gardens that remind us how simple beauty can transform our lives. So, breathe deeply, settle in, and let us begin this journey into the gentle world of climbing vines and potted dreams. When we talk about climbing plants, most of us imagine flowers that spill color and fragrance into the air. But there is another kind of magic when beauty and harvest meet in a single pot. Imagine walking out to your balcony, not only greeted by blossoms of pink, red, and gold, but also by pods, fruits, and leaves that you can taste, share, and turn into a simple meal. This is the quiet joy of ornamental and edible combinations. Think of scarlet runner beans, fiery red blooms that brighten a trellis as if painted by sunlight itself. Behind the flowers, green pods quietly form, promising nourishment. A single plant tells two stories, one of celebration and one of generosity. Place them in a pot near your kitchen window, and suddenly you have both a feast for the eyes and a fresh harvest for your table. Or imagine nasturtiums, vines that tumble with glowing orange and yellow flowers like tiny lanterns of joy. They climb lightly, filling the air with cheer. Yet their beauty hides a secret. The blossoms and leaves are edible. Peppery, bright, and alive, they transform the simplest salad into something unforgettable. Every bloom is not just decoration but a small gift, reminding us that beauty often carries hidden usefulness. There is also the charm of miniature pumpkins or squash vines in containers. Their broad green leaves create a canopy of shade. Their golden flowers open wide with morning light. And as the weeks pass, small fruits begin to swell. Each one is a story of patience and reward. You watch the vines climb and twine, and soon, a humble pot has become both a garden and a pantry. These combinations also invite life into your space. Bees, butterflies, and sometimes even hummingbirds, drawn to the blossoms, helping pollination, and turning your balcony into a living stage. It is a reminder that gardens are not isolated. They are part of a larger rhythm, where beauty, fragrance, food, and pollinators all weave together. So next time you look at a pot of vines, think not only of color but of harvest. Let your trellis carry blossoms that you can touch, taste, and share. Beauty and sustenance together form a design that is practical, poetic, and profoundly human. In the small corners of your home, such unions remind us that life thrives most when it offers both joy and nourishment. There is something unforgettable about a garden that does not just please the eye but also embraces the soul through fragrance. Flowers that climb and perfume the evening air carry a different kind of beauty, one that lingers long after you step away. A pot of vines becomes more than greenery. It becomes a sanctuary of scent and memory, Imagine star jasmine unfurling across a modest trellis. Its glossy leaves catch the last light of day, and then, as twilight deepens, tiny white blossoms release their perfume. The air itself changes, suddenly softer, warmer, almost like an embrace. To sit beneath this living curtain is to feel time slow down. Every breath is a reminder that nature's finest gifts are often invisible, yet deeply felt. Honeysuckle tells a similar story, but with a playful twist. Clusters of golden, pink, and orange trumpets spill fragrance into the evening. As night settles, their scent thickens in the air, drawing bees during the day and hummingbirds in the golden hour. In a simple pot, honeysuckle climbs eagerly, transforming a bare fence into a living wall of color and perfume. The fragrance lingers even when the blooms fade, a gentle whisper that carries memories of warm evenings and quiet laughter. Clematis, with its pastel flowers and delicate fragrance, offers another kind of magic. It climbs patiently, weaving through bamboo or wood, decorating corners with grace. The blooms are large, almost dramatic, yet the scent remains subtle, like a secret shared between you and the plant. Pair it with lavender in nearby pots, and suddenly your small garden becomes a tapestry of fragrances that mingle in the breeze. These climbers remind us that gardens are not only visual. They teach us to pause, to breathe deeply, to notice what cannot be captured by sight alone. A fragrant garden is an experience, one that greets you after a long day, that lingers in your hair and on your clothes, that makes every evening outdoors a little softer, a little more poetic. In the simplest pots and trellises, these vines show us how small spaces can carry vast beauty. Fragrance is invisible, but it changes everything. And when night falls, your garden becomes not just a place, but a memory that stays with you, carried in every breath. Every climbing plant carries a story, but without support, their voices cannot rise. A trellis, a pergola, even a simple curtain of twine, these are not just structures of wood or metal. They are invitations. They guide the vines upward, allowing beauty to spill into the air and transform an ordinary pot into a stage where nature performs. Imagine stepping into your patio and finding a handmade bamboo pergola. From the base, wisteria vines climb patiently, weaving themselves through each joint until lavender blossoms fall like soft rain. The structure is humble, yet the effect is breathtaking. With only a few poles and ties, you have built not just support but a living canopy, a place where light and shadow play in endless rhythm. Or picture a balcony where space is tight but dreams are not. A trellis shaped like palm leaves rises behind terracotta pots. Morning glory vines twine eagerly, their blossoms opening to greet the sun. Each flower feels brighter because of the frame that holds it high. A gardener's hand adjusts the vines gently, teaching them where to reach. In moments like these, you see how design and nature become partners, each enhancing the other. Even the simplest ideas, a geometric trellis of metal, a curtain of jute string stretched between two nails, can transform the smallest pot. Scarlet runner beans climb such structures with vigor, covering the lines with fiery blossoms and leaves. What was once bare becomes alive. What was plain becomes inspiring. The beauty of DIY supports is that they do not need perfection. A few sticks, some string, and your own creativity are enough. The plants themselves will do the rest, weaving strength into the frame, filling gaps, softening edges. Each season, the trellis tells a new story. Different colors, different vines, different lessons. What these structures teach us is patience and collaboration. We give them shape, the vines give them life. Together they create corners that feel larger than they are, gardens that whisper of distant landscapes, balconies that carry the spirit of a courtyard. So when you place your next pot, don't just think of soil and sunlight. Think of the frame, the guidance, the stage. With a trellis or pergola, even the humblest plant can rise, climb, and remind us that beauty is always ready to grow upward if only given something to hold on to. Some gardens whisper, but tropical gardens sing. They sing in colors so bold they seem to glow even in shadow, in blossoms that shine like lanterns of joy. When you create a tropical wall with climbing plants in pots, you invite the spirit of endless summer into your own space. Imagine bougainvillea spilling magenta cascades from a modest container, its papery bracts catching sunlight like sparks of fire. Alongside it, mandevilla vines climb eagerly, releasing trumpet-shaped blossoms in crimson and pink, vibrant as laughter. Then comes golden allamanda, a fountain of sunshine, turning every glance into warmth. Together, these climbers form a living tapestry, wild, radiant, and alive. It doesn't take a vast garden to achieve this effect. A balcony wall, a simple fence, or even a cluster of bamboo poles can become the canvas. Place terracotta pots at the base, guide the vines upward with strings or trellises, and soon, the plainest corner becomes a tropical dream. Every layer of growth adds depth, every flower a brushstroke of color. The joy of tropical climbers is not just their beauty, but their resilience. Bougainvillea thrives in poor soil and blazing sun, blooming fiercely when conditions seem harsh. Mandevilla continues to flower deep into the season, its glossy leaves reflecting light as if polished by the tropics themselves. Allamanda blooms boldly, carrying the warmth of golden mornings in every petal. These plants teach us that abundance does not need perfection. It only needs a chance to reach upward. There is also an energy in tropical walls that feels almost celebratory. Butterflies arrive, bees hum gently, and even passing birds pause at the feast of color. The air becomes brighter, the mood lighter, as if the garden itself is inviting you to slow down, breathe, and smile. And while the colors dazzle, the maintenance is simple. Water deeply but not too often, trim when vines grow wild, and let them climb freely. Soon, you will find your wall transformed, not by design alone, but by the collaboration between your hands and nature's exuberance. A tropical palette is more than a garden style. It is a reminder of holidays by the sea, of sunsets that refuse to fade, of joy that arrives unannounced. When pots carry these vines upward, even the smallest space can hold the vast spirit of the tropics. And in that spirit, your home becomes a place where summer never ends. In cities where walls stand close and windows face windows, privacy often feels like a luxury. Yet a few pots, a trellis, and climbing vines can create a sanctuary, a living screen that not only shields but soothes. A privacy green wall is more than a barrier. It is an embrace, a way of letting nature guard your quiet moments. Picture a balcony lined with terracotta pots, each one brimming with star jasmine vines. As they climb and weave, a curtain of glossy green leaves and fragrant white blooms forms in front of you. The city beyond grows softer, muted by foliage, while the air around you fills with perfume. You sit with a book or a cup of tea, and the world feels distant, hushed by leaves and blossoms. Privacy becomes not just about hiding, but about finding peace. Or imagine a small backyard corner where bamboo trellises rise lightly against a fence. Scarlet runner beans race upward, flashing red blossoms like sparks of joy, while black-eyed Susan vines spill golden laughter across the screen. Behind their cheerful faces, the space becomes yours alone, playful, warm, protected. Even in the humblest garden, these vines remind you that walls need not be heavy. They can be alive, breathing, shifting with light and wind. For a modern touch, clematis and passionflower twine around sleek wire panels. Their blooms, intricate and exotic, turn bare steel into lace woven by nature. Sunlight filters through petals of purple and white, scattering patterns of shadow across the floor. Privacy here does not feel like separation. It feels like transformation. A space made beautiful, where what shields you also invites wonder. These green walls carry lessons, too. They teach us that privacy is not only about closing off, but about opening up to the right things. To fragrance, to color, to the quiet company of plants. They soften harsh edges, reduce noise, and bring birds, bees, and butterflies into your sanctuary. Pot, a vine, a frame, that is all it takes. With patience, your living curtain grows day by day, weaving strength into beauty. And one morning, as you step into your balcony or garden, you realize that you have built not just privacy, but a refuge. A wall that does not shut the world out, but gently wraps you in nature's embrace. Every home has corners that often go unnoticed. Small spaces where dust gathers, or walls meet in shadow. Yet these forgotten places can become some of the most magical parts of your garden. With a few pots and climbing vines, you can transform an empty corner into a living story, a nook where color, fragrance, and memory weave together. Imagine placing a rustic chair beneath an arch made of sweet peas and nasturtiums. From terracotta pots, the vines rise and spill over, blossoms fluttering like notes in a song. As you sit there with a book, petals drift around you, carrying fragrance that feels like a quiet melody. The corner that once held nothing now holds peace, a sanctuary that invites you to pause. On a city balcony, the transformation can be just as powerful. Vertical wires stretch across a wall, guiding clematis and bougainvillea to climb and weave their patterns. Soon, magenta and purple blooms form a tapestry, softening the hardness of concrete. A small table stands beneath, holding a cup of tea. As evening comes, fairy lights twinkle between the vines, and your balcony becomes not just a place to sit, but a story to live. In another corner, perhaps on a patio, bamboo trellises frame passionflower and honeysuckle vines. Their blossoms bring fragrance and color, but also intimacy. A hammock chair hangs in the middle, catching sunlight filtered through petals. To rest here is to feel embraced not by walls, but by life itself. The vines seem to whisper their own stories of resilience, of beauty that grows upward, of patience rewarded with bloom. What makes these garden corners special is not perfection but intimacy. They remind us that beauty often thrives in the margins, in places we overlook. A pot here, a trellis there, a vine given freedom to climb, and suddenly the corner breathes. It becomes a destination, not just a leftover space. These little green alcoves teach us to look again at what we have. A corner is not empty. It is waiting for vines to climb, for petals to open, for us to notice. When we fill them with plants, they return the gift with moments of joy, calm, and wonder. In these corners, the garden becomes not just a place of growth, but of stories we carry with us, long after we leave the space. Not every vine rushes to the sky. Some take their time, weaving slowly, testing their ground, waiting for the right moment to bloom. These climbers teach us patience, reminding us that beauty often unfolds at its own rhythm, and that part of the joy lies in watching the journey itself. Wisteria, for example, begins with quiet determination. Its young stems wind carefully around the trellis, green and tender. A season may pass before it shows its true gift. But then, one morning, lavender clusters appear like soft rain falling from above, filling the air with fragrance and grace. It is a reminder that some of the most enchanting blooms are not instant. They are earned by waiting, by tending, by trusting time. Climbing hydrangea tells a similar story. In its first year in a pot, it seems shy, sending out leaves slowly, as if testing whether the soil is safe. But give it a second season, and lace-like blossoms arrive, draping walls in soft white. The contrast of patience and reward is striking. You learn to see not only the flowers but the strength built in the seasons of waiting. Its heart-shaped leaves stretch quietly, turning shade into sanctuary, reminding us that slow growth can create lasting beauty. Clematis also carries this rhythm. Sometimes it blooms quickly, sometimes it asks for a pause. Watching clematis grow in pots along a wire trellis is like watching a child learn to climb, each tendril reaching higher, each bud swelling with quiet promise. The first flowers feel like milestones, small victories that mark the passage of time. And as the seasons roll on, the vines return with greater strength, filling the frame more each year. This patience is part of the garden's gift. In a world that asks us to hurry, these plants invite us to slow down. to water gently, to notice small changes, to celebrate each new leaf and bud. They remind us that beauty is not only in the bloom but in the process of reaching it. When you grow climbers in pots, the journey itself becomes the treasure. You see resilience in their persistence, grace in their waiting, poetry in their upward climb. And when the flowers finally arrive, you realize they were not late at all. They bloomed exactly when they were meant to. Gardens are often seen as places of beauty, where flowers bring joy to the eyes and fragrance to the air. But there is another kind of wonder when those blossoms also carry food, when the same vines that delight us with color also give us something to share at the table. This union of beauty and harvest turns a simple pot into a source of abundance. Take scarlet runner beans, for example. Their red blossoms blaze against green leaves, like sparks of fire climbing a trellis. But behind their brilliance, long pods quietly form. One moment you admire their blooms, and the next you are gathering beans for dinner. The garden teaches you here that beauty and usefulness need not be separate. They can flourish together in harmony. Nasturtiums tell a story of joy and generosity. Their orange and yellow blooms spill cheerfully from containers, climbing lightly along bamboo frames. Each blossom glows like a small sun, but also holds a surprise. They are edible, peppery, and bright. Add them to a salad, and suddenly your meal carries the same radiance as your garden. The leaves too offer spice, turning every harvest into both nourishment and play. Tomatoes and cucumbers bring yet another dimension. In pots, they climb upward with steady determination, blossoms giving way to fruits that hang like ornaments of summer. A child reaches up to pluck a tomato, warm from the sun, tasting sweetness that cannot be bought. These vines transform patios and balconies into edible landscapes, where every bloom and fruit tells the story of life unfolding. There is poetry in these combinations. They remind us that gardens are not only to be seen, but to be lived. To eat a flower you have grown, to cook beans harvested from a pot, to share cucumbers with family and friends. These are moments where beauty crosses into daily life. In small corners, these edible climbers show us that abundance does not need wide fields. It can rise from a single pot, climbing upward, offering blossoms for the eyes and food for the body. Beauty becomes practical, and harvest becomes poetic. And as you tend these plants, you begin to see that every meal, every flower, every fruit is a reminder. Life is richer when it is both seen and shared. There is a moment in every day when light begins to soften, when the sun drifts low and shadows stretch long. In that hour, certain flowers awaken. They open quietly, releasing fragrance into the evening air, turning a simple garden into a sanctuary of scent. To grow these fragrant night curtains is to discover beauty that cannot be seen in daylight alone. Imagine a balcony where star jasmine twines up a trellis. During the day, its glossy leaves shine in the sun, but at twilight, clusters of white blossoms release perfume. The fragrance drifts like a gentle song, filling the air with sweetness as lanterns flicker nearby. A cup of tea in this space feels different, calmer, deeper, because every breath carries the memory of flowers. Honeysuckle adds its own music. Its blossoms, shades of yellow and pink, open wider as dusk falls. Their fragrance grows richer, almost honeyed, inviting moths and hummingbirds as night approaches. Woven across a pergola, honeysuckle transforms a corner of your backyard into a living ceiling of scent. Sit beneath it and you feel sheltered not just by leaves but by perfume. The air itself becomes part of the architecture, a roof woven of fragrance. Clematis and night-blooming jasmine bring another kind of enchantment. Their blooms are pale, almost luminous, glowing faintly against the dark. On warm evenings, the air thickens with their scent, a reminder that beauty is not bound by daylight. A single candle nearby makes petals shimmer, and suddenly your garden feels like a dream written in fragrance and shadow. These plants are more than decoration. They invite you to slow down, to step outside at dusk, to notice how the world changes when day folds into night. They remind us that not all beauty is loud or visible. Some of it must be felt, breathed, carried quietly in memory. A fragrant night curtain is a living poem. It teaches patience, waiting for blossoms to open at twilight, and rewards you with moments of stillness that linger long after. In pots, on trellises, in corners and balconies, these climbers soften the hard edges of walls and time itself. They turn ordinary evenings into rituals of calm, where fragrance becomes both shield and embrace. There are flowers that astonish with grandeur, and there are flowers that charm with joy. Some vines climb not to impress but simply to celebrate the day, filling corners with cheerfulness that feels like sunlight in bloom. These are the everyday happiness climbers. Plants that remind us that beauty is often simple, constant, and warm. Black-eyed Susan vines are among the brightest of these companions. Their golden petals, each circling a dark, watchful eye, open eagerly in the morning light. Against a wooden trellis or balcony railing, they climb quickly, spilling their laughter in yellow ribbons. Even on the hottest summer afternoons, they smile without tiring, proof that joy can persist even when days grow long. To sit beside them is to be reminded that happiness does not always shout. Sometimes, it glows quietly, faithfully, every single day. Nasturtiums add their own playful rhythm. Their round leaves look like little coins of green, and from them burst blossoms of orange, yellow, and crimson. They climb lightly, never demanding much, but offering color with unrestrained generosity. What makes them magical is not just their beauty but their gift. You can taste them. The peppery flowers brighten salads, turning ordinary meals into celebrations. In this way, nasturtiums embody the spirit of abundance. Beautiful, useful, and delightfully easy to love. Sweet peas bring a softer happiness. Their pastel petals flutter like silk in the breeze, releasing fragrance so gentle it feels like nostalgia itself. As they climb arches or twine around strings, they create corners filled with tenderness. Their gift is not boldness, but gentleness. And in their simplicity, they remind us that joy is often found in quiet things. In fragrance carried by the air, in petals touched by sunlight, in blooms gathered to share with a friend. Together, these vines create gardens that feel alive not just with color, but with spirit. They teach us to notice the small smiles of nature, to see each bloom as a reminder that happiness can be ordinary, constant, and close at hand. In pots, they thrive easily, asking only for sun and water, giving back far more than they take. To grow these climbers is to fill your home with small celebrations. Each flower a burst of warmth, each vine a thread of joy. In their presence, life feels lighter, brighter, and more beautiful. Not because they demand attention, but because they offer happiness freely every single day. Some flowers do not simply decorate a garden, they command it. Among them, allamanda vines are the golden trumpets of the tropics, climbing with vigor and painting walls, railings, and fences with sunlight itself. To grow allamanda in pots is to invite a permanent summer into your space, a golden glow that never fails to lift the spirit. Imagine stepping into a patio where pots brim with glossy green leaves, each leaf shining as if polished by warm air. From the vines, golden blossoms unfurl, their throats deep and radiant, glowing as though they held the morning sun. Even in modest containers, allamanda grows with strength, its vines eager to climb bamboo poles or wire frames. Soon, what was once bare becomes a cascade of yellow, a fountain of brightness against the simplest background. On a balcony, these vines create warmth in unexpected places. Their blooms soften white walls, glowing brighter in the afternoon sun, turning the corner into a tropical retreat. You sit beneath them with a cup of tea, the air alive with color, and for a moment you forget the city around you. Allamanda brings the dream of distant shores into your everyday life. In gardens, the effect is even more profound. A fence or trellis becomes alive, covered in vines that bloom again and again through the warm months. Butterflies and bees arrive, drawn to the golden trumpets, and the space hums with gentle life. A child reaches up to touch the blossoms, wide-eyed at their glow. The flowers do not whisper. They sing, bold and unashamed, filling the air with joy. Allamanda teaches us resilience, too. It thrives in sunlight, asking little more than warmth and regular water. In return, it blooms without end, its petals always fresh, its color always vibrant. The lesson is simple. Beauty flourishes when it leans into light. To grow allamanda is to live with brightness, to let golden vines carry cheer into the quiet corners of your home. In pots, on trellises, along fences, it becomes more than a plant. It becomes a promise. Promise that light, once welcomed, can linger, and in its blossoms, glowing like captured dawn, you find not just color but hope, warmth, and joy that lasts all season long. When summer begins to soften into autumn, the garden reveals a final secret. Sweet autumn clematis wakes gently, unfurling clouds of tiny star-shaped blossoms that turn fences, arches, and trellises into shimmering veils of light. To see this vine in bloom is to watch a garden draped in moonlight, even while the sun still lingers. Imagine a simple clay pot at the base of a trellis. For months, green leaves climb quietly, weaving a steady pattern across wood or wire. Then, almost without warning, 1,000 white flowers appear all at once. They spill downward like a curtain, glowing softly against the green, filling the air with fragrance as light as silk. You step closer, and it feels as if the garden has been dusted with stars. On a patio, sweet autumn clematis can transform an ordinary corner into a sanctuary. Its blossoms arrive when many summer flowers have faded, reminding us that beauty does not vanish with time. It changes form. The fragrance is gentle, sweet but not heavy, carrying softly on the breeze. Sit beneath its living curtain, and the world feels hushed, wrapped in quiet grace. Children often see it as magic. To them, the flowers are not simply petals but tiny stars that have fallen from the sky. A lantern held beneath the vines makes the blossoms glow even brighter, turning the garden into a place of wonder, where stories seem ready to begin. In cities, clematis brings softness to concrete. Along balcony wires, it creates privacy and beauty in equal measure, shielding you from the outside while giving back something infinitely more precious: peace. You sit beneath it with a cup of tea, the last warmth of the sun spilling across the blossoms, and you realize the season itself is whispering farewell. Sweet autumn clematis is more than a climber. It is a reminder of transition, of how life shifts gently from one season to another. It teaches us to see endings not as loss, but as transformations, filled with their own brilliance. To grow this vine in a pot is to invite a constellation into your garden. With patience and care, your wall, fence, or balcony will bloom into starlight, carrying the memory of summer into autumn, and leaving behind a promise that beauty will return again. As our journey comes to a gentle close, let us pause for a moment among the blossoms and the climbing greens. Each vine we have imagined, each bloom we have described, is more than a plant in a pot. It is a story of resilience, patience, and quiet beauty. Gardens, even the smallest ones, remind us that life does not need vast spaces to flourish. With a little care and a willing heart, beauty can rise from clay pots, stretch toward the light, and soften the world around us. In these moments, we discover that gardens are not just about growing plants. They are about growing peace. They teach us to notice the subtle rhythm of time, the fragrance carried by evening air, and the colors that greet us in the morning. They whisper lessons about waiting, about kindness, and about how the simplest acts of care can turn into abundance. Here at TERAFLORA Studio, our hope is to share these inspirations with you, so that your own corners, whether a balcony, a backyard, or a small windowsill, can bloom into places of wonder. Each idea is a seed, and you are the gardener who brings it to life. If you have found warmth and inspiration in this journey, we invite you to become part of our growing community. By subscribing to TERAFLORA Studio, you join us in exploring more stories of nature, design, and creativity. Together, we can keep learning, creating, and filling our spaces with green beauty that speaks softly to the soul. Thank you for walking with us today. May your days be calm, your spaces full of light, and your gardens, no matter how small, always remind you of the joy of living things. Until next time, let beauty guide you home.